Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Canadian Car Review Show. So today I'm going to do the second part of the GDE Hot Tune review, and the only reason why I'm going to do that is because I actually have the second generation of the tune, and in my first review I had the first generation and it was installed in the summer months, whereas now I've just came over the winter months and I'm almost into the spring months, and I want to go over the experiences that I had in really cold climate conditions, so you guys get a better understanding if the tune actually works well at harsh temperatures. So you got the information during the summer months. Let me give you the information during the winter months. Now with the stock tune, if you watch my first review, I've had tons of problems with the stock tune. I had my DPF nozzle freeze, gave me a check engine light, which gave me a pretty much a countdown to how many kilometers I can drive until I actually brought the truck in for servicing at a dealership. And if I didn't match the same time frame as the amount of kilometers that I had remaining, and I exceeded it, if I turned off the truck was completely disabled. Again, something that customers don't want to have. It really puts a bad taste in your mouth, considering that you would hope that, that failure would only occur at catastrophic moments where the system really needs to protect itself and shut down. But really at the end of the day, all it was a computer glitch that the engineers forgot to program a certain amount of time for the DPF nozzle to thaw out. That way it can start actually siphoning some of the DPF fluid, or the DEF fluid itself. So I just had a real bad stage of luck with the truck when I first purchased it, and there was so many problems in cold climate conditions where you can tell that Ram Trucks didn't invest the time in really perfecting its performance and its abilities, like they always mention in their advertisements, that they've done vigorous testing, and Ram Trucks is one of the most long-lasting trucks out there in North America. That may be true statistically speaking, but in reliability they could have done a lot better at making sure that this truck was ready for the harsh temperatures. Now, to get into the whole thing, again, this year we experienced a lot of cold days, about minus 40 degrees Celsius. With the wind chill, it would have been about minus 49 degrees Celsius on some mornings. Now, I drive early in the morning, so I got the full temperature effect while driving in these cold temperatures, warming up the truck, just using the remote starter, sometimes using the block heater. And all I can tell you is this: I noticed a difference in how long it takes to warm up my truck. With the stock tune, I noticed if I allowed the truck to just remote start without the engine block heater, it would take me sometimes 2 cycles to properly warm up the motor. And I would say that's getting your oil temperature to around 20 degrees Celsius. It's just, it would get that cold at nighttime, whereas if it ran for 15 minutes, it just wasn't long enough. And I knew something was wrong because it just didn't make any sense. This is a modern truck where the thermostat should be shut. It should be really heating up that coolant and really warming up the block, the engine block. And it just didn't make too much sense to me. I figured, okay, maybe, it's the rad and, that massive front grille that we have for these trucks. In the winter months, it's not really beneficial of keeping the heat in. We really expel all of the hot air coming out of that motor, once it's in operation or very cold climate conditions. So I always questioned that, and I never understood. Now with the hot tune, I saw a huge difference. If I do a remote start of 15 minutes, the truck's ready to go. It's at 20 degrees Celsius. Now, I also saw a bigger improvement after that by installing the car bra that Ram Trucks provided after the warranty recall came into effect. Now, I installed the truck bra itself about midway through the winter months, so I already experienced the GDE version 2 of the tune warming up my truck a lot faster than the stock tune. So right off the bat, I can tell you that the active grille shutters, the reprogramming of it, whatever they did to it or whatever they changed with respect to the engine parameters, your truck engine actually heats up a lot faster, which is really nice because when you start your truck, you have the worst emissions in diesel. And the faster it warms up, the better your emissions gets, and it's just better for the environment in general, and for your motor as well, because the oil is not as thick anymore, and it's really becoming viscous and able to flow better through the engine block. So right off the bat, I saw that improvement. Another thing that I've noticed is my fuel economy numbers are a hell of a lot better. If you're going from first gen to second gen of the tune, you're not going to notice any changes in fuel economy. But from the stock tune, there's a massive increase. I've gained about 60 to 80 kilometers in range, and that's being conservative. If I just do pure highway miles, I've seen an increase of about 120 to 140 kilometers. My best average that I had so far, and that wasn't depleting the full tank, was 1,080 kilometers, and I still think I had, you know, I still had the reserve. I didn't have my fuel light on telling me that I had low fuel. So I know I probably could have gotten to the 1100 range without any issues. And if you do the hand calculation to that, filling up with 95 liters of diesel, I mean, you're averaging around 8.5 or 8.6 liters per 100 kilometers, which is fantastic. And again, that's with two-wheel drive on, and that's with the 392 gear set. So if I can achieve those numbers, you guys out there with the 355 gear sets, or, you know, with the smaller box, or instead of having the crew cab, you just have, you know, the regular cab, you guys can probably achieve better results than I have. Now, again, I've talked about reliability. I've had zero issues with the tune. Now the cost, if I didn't mention it to you, it's about $750 US for the stock tune, and you can get a lot of add-ons. So for example, with this tune, the second gen, I've asked for engine braking, and the only reason why I've asked for that is because I think it's a good feature to have if you're ever going to tow in the future, or if you actually tow. You know, if you're going down a steep hill and you want to have a little bit more control of your truck, the engine braking system is automatic. You don't have to press any buttons to activate it. It will detect that, you know, you have a heavy load behind the vehicle, and engine braking will apply. Have I been able to use it effectively? Not really, because I haven't really attached a trailer to my truck yet, believe it or not. But if I go down very, very steep hills at high speeds, I notice that the truck actually maintains its cruise control speed a lot better. Or if I'm, well, let me rephrase that, because it's not cruise control that I was using. If I'm doing, like, let's say 110 kilometers an hour going up a massive bridge and then coming down, I can just literally take my foot off the accelerator and just coast down the hill, and I don't gain in speed. It really just holds at 110 kilometers an hour, and there's no changing gears or anything like that. I'm still in the same gear. So I think something's happening behind the scenes that's a little bit more efficient, that's controlling my speed a little bit. And you know what? I like that. To me, it's just, I have better control of the vehicle. It's a lot more responsiveness. And again, if you guys are towing with heavy trailers, you're going to see the improvement of being able to brake a lot easier, because you're not heating up your brakes as quickly with a heavy load in the back. You also can add on, like I said, you can add on a lot of things. So I mentioned the Regen, or no, I mentioned engine braking. You can also add a Regen message into your driver's gauge console if you want to know when your vehicle's going in through a Regen. Now, that's an extra 50 bucks if you want that feature. Again, the engine braking is also an extra 50 bucks on top of the stock tune price. And they also have something called a high idle. And if you want a higher idle speed, you can have that installed. And I guess you can use that for various applications. Again, for heavy towing and maybe a little bit, you know, off-road conditions that most people won't have, or most people won't need. Or if you're going to do, you know, aggressive tuning or aggressive changes to the motor, that high-speed idle feature may be beneficial to you guys. Now, again, I don't fully understand the whole concepts of high idle. I would assume it's for towing, but it might be for some other things. So if you guys have any questions, I would suggest you actually contact GDE, and they'll give you a proper answer to why you may want the high idle feature. But what they do have for an extra 100 bucks is something called the off-road tune. And now the off-road tune explains itself pretty much in a nutshell. It's a tune just designed for off-roading. So if you guys are out there with the 17-inch tires, you know, the aggressive mud track tires, and you guys like to go up, you know, rocky hills or whatever, you like to take your truck on, you know, just very aggressive trails, there is an optimal tune for this truck that they provide, and it's available right now, so you can actually just order it as part of your upgrade package. So as you can tell, if you add everything up, it's about $1,000 US if you want all those extra characteristics. Now, to give you a little bit of a tidbit, if you're really concerned about regen, I suggest you just get the message display. If you really don't care about regen, because you got to remember, with the GDE tune, you don't go through so many regens like you did with the stock motor. It's a hell of a lot better, and it's not very noticeable because you don't smell the awful smells that we were getting with the stock regen system. So it works a hell of a lot better, and really, to me, having the regen message is kind of redundant. I mean, the truck's going to go through regen, but who cares? You really don't need to wait. The regen cycle goes by so fast. I mean, if it's in real detrimental danger, you always have the stock code still there telling you that you need to run the truck. And I've never had that because I do a lot of highway miles. So I've never had to do a full complete regen with this truck yet. Now, with respect to the consumption of DEF fluid, again, because I'm not going through so many cycles of regen, I've seen an astronomically huge difference in how much diesel emissions fluid I've consumed. And it's a hell of a lot more realistic to what Ram Trucks actually advertises, which I think is about 12,000 kilometers you can go through with a tank. I was averaging around 8,000 kilometers with the stock tune, and I could never really get past that for whatever reason. With this, I can easily tell you it's at least 15 to 16,000 kilometers. I see a huge difference. It's very noticeable, and again, there's no aggressive smells coming out of my exhaust system, even though I have the EGR turned off, and I don't notice, you know, any kind of soot coming out of my tailpipe on cold engine starts. I don't smell anything, you know, out of the ordinary compared to a stock tune. And I have friends that have Ram trucks out there, like the Ecodiesels, and they've been side by side with me. We start up, you know, at the same time, with the truck sitting at the same length of time, and honestly, they don't even smell the difference. So really, there's no change in the emissions controls. I don't think the tune is that aggressive where you're gonna really see, you know, a loss of cleaning emissions, because I mean, there's only a 10 horsepower gain. I mean, the torque may sound like a lot, but I think that's just because it's a diesel motor, and you see massive gains when you start tuning diesel engines. Now, getting back into that, there's a lot of users out there on YouTube asking me, okay, well, can you pass emissions? And my answer to that is, it's not a definite yes, but I'm going to say yes, and the only reason why is for a few things. One, again, like I mentioned to you, there's no black smoke coming out of my tailpipes. I see diesel trucks, the old school Cummins turbo diesel engines, the Power Stroke Fords out there with a DPF delete system, and they got black soot coming out of their tailpipes compared to what I have. So I mean, if they're passing emissions, and I'm worried about passing emissions when I have the complete emission control system still buttoned up together, I really don't think I'm going to fail emissions, because again, there's no check engine lights, there's no engine codes causing any issues. The system is still running. It's just the dosing has changed, and again, the dilution of fuel and the way the fuel tables are mapped is completely different compared to the stock tune. So it's not like I'm using the same amount of fuel, and I can prove that by just telling you my fuel economy numbers. So something has greatly changed. I mean, GDE is not falsely advertising, you know, their claims of you being able to pass emissions. And to give you another example, if you're really concerned about emissions, there's another company out there in the United States that actually has a whole kit for our trucks now, where they remove the stock turbo, or they add a turbo onto it. I'm not really sure. I have to watch their videos again. They don't have too much information on it, but they're making like 100 horsepower gains at the wheel, and they're still passing emissions. And they still have the entire emission control unit set up, and they have an EGR delete. So if they're making an extra 100 horsepower with an extra turbo add-on, and they're keeping the entire emissions control system intact except the EGR delete, or the EGR turn-off, I should say, the green diesel engineering tune is totally going to pass emissions. So this is why I'm trying to put two and two together. And if it wasn't passing emissions, guys, it wouldn't have great reviews. We tell you to stay away. It's as simple as going onto a forum site and just listening to even the past. You can listen to the people with the older Grand Cherokees with the 3-liter Mercedes diesel engine. GDE did all kinds of tuning with that, and people were concerned then. And they're still passing emissions with the tune. So it just goes to show, these guys are well known. They're well respected on the internet and in the United States. and you just have to take a chance and just go with it. This is a fantastic product. I can't reiterate this as much anymore. I mean, I don't know how many more videos I have to make, but it's just that good. Like, absolutely no issues. So I'm going to go past this reliability, because I've clearly mentioned to you guys how well it is. I mentioned soot control. Now, actually, let me get back into soot control, because let's talk about longevity of the motor. Now, like I mentioned to you, the fuel dilution and the way the oil, the amount of, because there's better fuel dilution, and they've trimmed the fuel trimmings down to increase your gains, there's a lot less soot being produced by the motor. Now, the number one culprit well, I shouldn't say number one culprit. The number one problem with the VM motor is that it's a very dirty motor. So just naturally speaking, the way it's designed from the stock tune, if you start it up with no exhaust system, the amount of black soot coming out of the exhaust manifold is just unbelievable. You wouldn't think it's a 3-liter motor. You'd think it's like a 6.2 liter V8 diesel engine. It's very, very dirty. It creates a lot of black soot, and unfortunately Ram Trucks just wasn't able to really control the amount of soot that was being created. And maybe that's why they include the EGR, because they have to. It's against the law without EPA standards or EPA regulations. And again, they just weren't able to control the soot as well as GDE was able to. Now, they applied their practices that they've been doing for many years with diesel engines, and all I can say is that the soot is reduced. And the only reason why I know this is because you need to look into your intake manifold. Now, you can do a little bit of homework. I'd suggest you guys to do this, and you can take my word for it. I'm going to try to make another video, just a quick 5-minute video to show you. But if you go onto a channel on YouTube, it's called Mopar Ecodiesel. Now, I'm not affiliated with this person. I've talked to him on the forum sites. We've actually shared knowledge and information with each other on the forum sites. But he's had some major problems with his motor. He's got over 200,000 miles, I believe, on his motor, and his motor has blown up. You can find out why. It has nothing to do with soot control. It's actually something else that I might touch on in this video. But all I can tell you is that he opened his intake manifold. He actually first removed the EGR diffuser tube, like GDE has advertised on their website, and it was caked. It was really bad, and he shows you how to clean it. He couldn't believe how much crap was already in the EGR tube with the amount of miles that he had, and I think he only had at the time about 30,000 miles. So he's been cleaning that EGR tube religiously since then, and I haven't even touched mine. I'm even afraid to even look, because again, I ran the tune for about 32,000 kilometers, which is about 18,000 miles for you guys in America, which is not a big deal, but I guarantee you there's all kinds of soot and crap all over it. Where I did look, though, was my intake manifold, and my intake manifold is clean. There's absolutely no issues inside my intake manifold. There's no soot in there. Well, there is a little bit, but nothing compared to what Mopar Ecodiesel is going to show you in his video. And just take a look of how much crap he has in there. And he's ran that motor 50, I think, at that time when he had taken a look. He's probably going to watch this video and he'll comment in the section. He's pretty good. He watches all of the Ram Truck videos out there that everybody makes. He'll give you the exact specs, but I think it was around 50,000 miles. And you can see how upset he is. You can hear it in his voice. You shouldn't have a dirty intake manifold like the way he shows you guys in his video. It's really bad. And he mentions it right off the bat. He says, now I see why there's a lot of guys switching over to the GDE tune, because having the GDE tune greatly reduces the amount of soot going back into the motor. And because you have that awesome feature of the tune, you're actually increasing the longevity of your oil, because now you're not throwing all that soot into your oil. So whatever Ram Trucks recommends as an interval for an oil change, which for us is about 15,000 kilometers, you can actually go over a little bit. I wouldn't suggest it, but if you need to, you can easily do so, because now soot is controlled a hell of a lot better with the GDE hot tune. Now, I've talked a lot about all this. I've talked about fuel economy. Now, fuel economy, like I said, the increase is just astronomical, providing that you drive conservatively. It's all about conservation. I mean, if you're going to be driving this truck wide open throttle all the time, you're not going to see a difference in fuel economy. But if you drive conservatively, if you use cruise control a lot, you will definitely notice a massive increase in fuel efficiency. Now they go over some other things. I'm going to just read off and I'll mention if it's true or false. Optimized fuel economy, true. Reduced engine soot, absolutely, because like I said, looking at Mopar Ecodiesel's intake manifold and looking at mine, there's a day and night difference. And I mean, you guys can actually go take a look inside your intake manifolds and you'll see how much soot's in there from the stock tune. And again, Ram Trucks doesn't want to admit to it because it is going to be a problem later down the road. And again, there's a lot of things going on top of that intake manifold that is really critical. And again, you can watch Mopar Ecodiesel's video. He really explains why it's important to have that area clean, or that cavity. Improved DEF consumption, I've mentioned that to you already. Engine longevity increased, well obviously, because again, you're not creating as much soot. And really, even though the EGR has been turned off, I've had some viewers actually say, oh, you know, you're telling us that your emissions control system is still turned on, but the EGR is still part of it. When I first went to GDE could not understand why Ram Trucks even included an EGR. They didn't have to. And they could have easily marketed it to EPA and say, look, you don't need one. Here's a truck with one, and here's a truck without one. You know, they could have probably saved themselves some money. Or they could have just done a better job and somehow marketed into their advertising and just prove to everybody out there that, yeah, their engine technology is superior compared to their competitors. And I really do think that Ram Trucks has fantastic engine platforms, but again, it's just the amount of time that they invest is not enough when it comes to reliability standards. It also mentions transient management of injection timing to reduce combustion noise. Now, I didn't notice any changes in combustion noise whatsoever. I've actually noticed that my engine on startup it sounds a hell of a lot more like a diesel engine. Like, it's not tingy like the stock tune is. It's kind of hard to describe, but there is definitely a change in the way the engine sounds. It sounds a lot more like a diesel engine. It's got more of like a low note, and I mean, it's a tiny motor. It's nothing like a Power Stroke or a Cummins or anything like that. But you kind of get my drift. It sounds just a little bit more masculine. Enhanced DPF management, updated soot models and regeneration triggers. Absolutely. There is definitely longer intervals. It says longer intervals here. Refined generation control for better soot burn, 800 miles or more in certain conditions. Again, I never really, because I don't have the regen process or the regen message programmed into my dash, I don't know how much regen I do, but I can tell you right now it's not very often. And the only reason why I know this is because when you turn off the truck, and if you are in the middle of a regen, or if you're coming out of a cycle and your exhaust temperatures are still hot, the coolant fans or your electric fans in the front of the truck stay on after the truck is off, and that just helps kind of escape the hot air out of the engine bay. And again, that's not something that Ram Trucks is programmed. That's all GDE. That's what you get for 11 months of tuning or PID data logging. And again, in the second generation, it's probably even better. You know, longer intervals of cooling. They also mentioned some other stuff here. I'm going to read through, but you get what you pay for, is what I'm trying to say, guys. Compared to like a Blue Spark, where it just kind of fools the fuel rail that it's losing pressure or whatever it does. I mean, this is not a piggyback system. This system, the ECM upgrade, is a fantastic feature to have with this truck. Now, it says better transient engine performance, faster time to torque, giving elevated customer confidence in the driving experience. I totally believe that. Required accelerator pedal effort to hold constant speed is reduced. Absolutely. Engine performance is improved over stock from sea level to 12,000 feet. Never really tested that. You need someone to actually climb a mountain to really get a proper test of that. Refined cruise control operation. This I noticed. Retuned speed control for improved fuel economy, better gear holding during acceleration and uphill driving. I've totally noticed that. I could be revving at a low RPM with cruise control on, and if I'm going up a hill, it just holds the gear. It really does actually hold the gear a lot longer, and I have noticed that. And I don't know if it's just a change in the transmission pattern, or it's just there's that much more torque available with the engine. The transmission doesn't need to shift. Faster response buttons, I hardly use these things. They're so awkward where they are, and really, again, it's a Ram truck, it's not a Dodge Viper, so I don't really waste my time with that. I can't really answer that one, but I'll believe it. Superior management of grill shutters. Again, after telling you guys how fast my truck has warmed up at really cold temperatures, I really think that Ram Trucks has played a huge, or sorry, not Ram Trucks, GDE played a huge role in improving that system by just using that half active grill shutter system that I mentioned we have. And then adding the truck bra on top of it was just, it made a huge difference. And I'll show you a video of how much of a restriction the truck bra gives you guys compared to the stock grill that I was running for with 1.5 years. Improved operation of three-way coolant valve to give engine warm-up benefits. That's what I wanted to mention to you. And maybe that's why I see a massive increase in warm-up temperatures, because again, they've improved the operation of the three-way coolant valve. Two-footing driving is now permissible. They also eliminated high-pressure pump noise for the My 15 and newer vehicles. It's also applicable for the My 14 vehicles that have been recently reflashed. I never had really high-pressure pump noise. I know there's a couple of people on YouTube that are posting videos that they hear something in their truck and they just can't explain it. I think that might be what it is. I guess it's just a production tolerance that wasn't really worked out properly. I mean, it's not defective, it just has a different operation sound. More intuitive driver indications, so engine power reduced, and this is a warning for hot oil temps activated at lower temperatures. So there was always something in your manual that said, you know, if you're towing and the engine oil gets extremely hot, it'll actually give you an error code here. Well, it's not an error code, it's a warning saying that engine power is reduced, and that's just to allow the coolers to cool off the oil a little bit better, a little bit more effectively. And what GDE has done is they've actually lowered the temperatures, and I'm assuming it's because you're making so much extra power, they want to just give you that protection still that the stock tune gives you. Improved cooling fan control. Like I mentioned to you guys, the cooling fans stay on even after the engine is off at high temperatures. It also says fan will now run for a certain amount of time after shutting down to cool down the engine and the exhaust system. It activates if either the regen is still active when the engine is shut off, or if the exhaust temps are above a prescribed limit, as I mentioned to you. Earlier activation based on coolant temp while driving to keep engine and oil cooler. So again, it'll activate on its own. It's using its duty cycle has changed a little bit, but I'd rather, you know, increase the duty cycle of my electric fans than, you know, allow more heat to enter to at the engine when I'm towing or when there's extreme hot temperatures outside. Inducement improvements, so torque limitation instead of no start, activates after 1 key cycle instead of immediately. So that's something I mentioned in my first vid. You guys can go to that one. And it says something here about disabled low voltage charging mode in order to properly drive electrical accessories in all conditions. I have no idea what this means. Disabled low voltage charging mode. So maybe you guys know something more than I do on this. You guys can definitely chime in onto this video and let everybody know. I have no idea what that means. And again, it says 3 to 5 miles per gallon fuel economy improvement is an estimate. Your personal gain might be higher or lower depending on your usage and driving habits. And like I said, I totally notice a huge difference in the fuel economy. So overall, it's a fantastic product. Your 0 to 60 times. I'm going to see if I can meet up with one of the people that have been watching the videos here. He actually lives close to me, and he's got the same truck as me, but he's running the stock tune. And I'm going to see if we can actually do a 0 to 60 time in a private road area or a secluded area. And maybe we'll do some passing power comparisons, you know, driving 80 kilometers on the highway and then ramping up all the way to about, you know, 110, 120. And we'll see how long each truck takes, going from the stock tune to the GDE Hot Tune version 2. And you'll see the gains. It's just day and night difference. I don't even have to question it. It's that much of an improvement. So if you guys have any more questions, I'm trying to remember some other questions. Before I forget, the most critical here, warranty. Guys are saying, are the dealerships going to be able to detect the GDE Hot Tune? Now, if you talk to GDE, they say no. I mean, they'd have to really look at the tune itself to really find out if the tune has been installed. Now, I'm going to say yes to you guys because I had the failure to the tune, or sorry, I had the failure with the truck with just the stock tune, And this is something that they looked at, and I guarantee you they're going to know something's been changed if you have the GDE tune and the same issue. So let's say your DPF system nozzle freezes, okay, and you get that engine warning. You're going to take your truck in because it's under warranty. You want that fixed, right? Now, with the stock tune, they're going to de-ice it. They're going to allow the DEF fluid to unfreeze. They're going to do all these tests to verify that everything's running efficiently, and they're going to do something called the dosing test, and it was actually on my repair sheet that they told me, or what that they gave me to take home. And what they do is they calculate the amount of volume that's being sprayed into your exhaust system. And using the star scan system, I guess they can calculate right to the exact milliliters that's being sprayed into the exhaust system. And I think it's around 0.32 milliliters or 0.30 milliliters or something like that. It's either 30 milliliters or 0.30. I'll have to look at the receipt. But anyways, it's a very specific number. And if that specific number is working and your emissions is still failing, that means something up in front of the nozzle itself is failing. And that's how they kind of learn to change the parts. They do this all with Chrysler engineers in Michigan. Now, if you have the GDE tune, because they changed the dosing parameters, like I mentioned to you earlier, they're going to notice that 0.3 or that 30 milliliters of dosing volume has been changed. And Ram Truck knows that there's no security feature in its truck that goes to a maximum dosing. Again, maybe GDE is already taking consideration and can answer for me, but it came at the top of my head and I really wanted to mention it to you guys. But again, it has to be that specific condition. Now, because Ram Trucks has given out a recall notice on that whole software glitch, you won't even have to take your truck in for that, unless if you do have catastrophic emission failure. And the only reason why you'll have that is by running the stock tune. Because running the GDE tune, I can guarantee you, I'm not blowing as much soot as I was into the emissions control system with the stock tune. So that's something to think about. And I'm just trying to think of anything else I can mention. If there's something I forgot, guys, just ask me again on the second video, and I'll try to answer the questions as best as I can. I'm out of my warranty, so I have nothing to hide. I'm not protected by any warranty, and that's the reason why I went with the tune. Because if I came out of warranty with the stock tune and all those problems with, you know, the freezing of the intercooler, that's another issue. Mopar Ecodiesel will explain that to you. He opens the bottom of his intercooler and all kinds of water and crap come out of the bottom of the intercooler. Just goes to show why we need a truck bra on the trucks. And the other catastrophic issue with the truck that he shows is, I believe it's the intake cam. The intake cam has a sprocket gear on the end, and it's either the keyway has sheared off or something's happened to the point where the chain has hopped off of the gear sprocket itself, and it changed the timing of his intake cam. I believe it's the intake cam. Again, you can go onto his channel and read and watch the video, but something's happening with our camshafts with regards to the timing chain. Again, there's no real information on it because he's the only person that's actually experienced that issue. And he's put over 200,000 miles on his truck, and he's always used a 7,000-pound trailer everywhere he goes. He never takes the trailer off. So, I mean, he's always had moderate loads of towing when operating his vehicle. And again, it failed at 200,000 miles. So if you guys are watching his videos, don't be too concerned. He also has done a lot of modifications with his truck. And, you know, he's a diesel mechanic, or he's got a very strong mechanical background. He's done a lot of things with his truck. I wouldn't freak out that because his motor failed, your motor's going to fail. That's not what I'm trying to do with you guys. All I'm trying to do is provide you with more information to be aware of what you could encounter if you buy this truck. Now, don't kid yourself. There's all kinds of problems with the new Ford F-150 2.7 liter EcoBoost motor. And if you don't believe me, just review or type in a couple of key points of the 3.5 liter EcoBoost motor. And there's all kinds of problems with that motor as well. So Ford hasn't worked out all of its nicks and cranks out of the 2.7 liter EcoBoost either. So again, don't get discouraged. If it was a really bad product, I wouldn't be driving this thing anymore. I would trade it in for something else. And yeah, again, I love this truck. It's fantastic. I will do a couple of more reviews like I mentioned. My only complaints out of having the truck for 65,500 kilometers, by the way, is the headlights. The headlights suck. So stay tuned. I'm going to eventually upgrade my headlights, and I'm going to show you what the headlights should be on this truck. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe for more videos.